History has lied to you. It has shown you a city of white marble, pristine, static, divine. You see the toga, the laurel wreath, the philosopher staring at the stars. This is a fantasy. This is the sanitized memory of a dying empire trying to forgive itself. Rome was not born in the Senate. It was not built by politicians in silk. Rome was forged here, in the mud, in the freezing rain of the frontier, in the absolute, terrifying discipline of the legion. The world did not give Rome its power. The Rome took it. Mile by bloody mile, they paved the earth with the bones of kings and called it Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Before the emperors, before the Golden Age, before the map turned red, there was no eagle. There was only the wolf. And the wolf is always hungry. To understand the empire, you must look at the dirt it sprang from. Central Italy, 8th century B.C., a chaotic patchwork of Etruscan lords and Latin tribes. On the banks of the Tiber River, there was a swamp surrounded by 7 steep hills. It was not a paradise. It was a malarial choke point, a strategic trap. Whoever controlled these hills controlled the trade of the entire peninsula. It was a place where only the ruthless could survive. Legend tells us of Romulus and Remus, twin sons of the war god Mars, abandoned to die, saved by a she-wolf who suckled them in a cave. It is a beautiful story, but myths are just shadows of the truth. The reality was likely far grimmer. These were not demigods, they were outcasts, bandits, unwanted men gathering on the Palatine Hill. In 753 B.C., Romulus did not found a city on brotherly love. He founded it on fratricide. He killed his brother Remus for mocking his walls. Rome's first act was murder. Its first foundation was blood. This was the omen that would haunt them for 1,000 years. To build the greatest, you must destroy your own kin. For 2 centuries, they were ruled by kings, tyrants who took what they wanted. But the Romans were a people obsessed with dignitas, personal worth. In 509 B.C., after the brutal violation of the noblewoman Lucretia by the king's son, the city snapped. They drove the kings out. They swore a blood oath that never again would a single man hold absolute power over Rome. From the ashes of monarchy, they built something the world had never seen: res publica, the public affair, a machine of state designed to prevent tyranny. They created the Senate. They created the consulship. They replaced the whim of a king with the cold, hard logic of law. But a republic is fragile. To survive in a world of wolves, Rome needed teeth. They did not just build a government, they built a mindset. Order. The chaos of the swamp was gone. The machine had begun to turn, and its gears were grinding toward the rest of Italy. How did a single city conquer the known world? It was not through bravery alone. The Gauls were brave, the Carthaginians were rich. Rome won because they turned war into a science. Look at the weapon that built an empire, the Gladius Hispaniensis. It is not a hero's sword. It is short, ugly, efficient. While the barbarians swung long iron blades that required space and momentum, the Romans stepped inside the guard. He hid behind the scutum, a curved plywood shield reinforced with iron, and he stabbed. 2 inches. That is all it takes to kill a man in the liver. The Greeks fought in a phalanx, a massive, solid wall of spears, powerful but brittle. If the ground was uneven, the phalanx broke. Rome saw this weakness and engineered the maniple, the handfuls, small, independent blocks of men that could move, rotate, and reinforce gaps in real time. It was a checkerboard of death. If the front line tired, a whistle blew. Line replacement. The enemy, exhausted and bleeding, suddenly found themselves fighting fresh men. Rome did not just outfight you, they outlasted you. But an army is useless if it cannot move. And so, the legionaries became laborers. They built the Viae Publicae, the public roads. These were not dirt paths. They were engineering marvels. 4 layers of sand, stone, crushed rock, and lava polygon pavers, crowned for drainage. They dug through mountains. They bridged chasms. At its height, 50,000 miles of stone veins pumped the lifeblood of the empire. They allowed a legion to march 20 miles a day, every day, arriving at a rebellion before the rebels had even finished sharpening their spears. The road was the weapon. To understand the Roman mind, you must understand that they were not free in the way we think of it today. They were bound by invisible chains, the mos maiorum, the way of the ancestors. A Roman did not seek happiness. He sought dignitas, auctoritas, the crushing weight of reputation. The father, the pater familias, held the power of life and death over his own household. This severity bled into the state. Duty was not a choice, it was the only option. This obsession with permanence changed the physical world. The Greeks built with marble, stacking stone on stone. Rome invented liquid rock, opus camenticium. They mixed volcanic ash from Pozzuoli with lime and seawater, a chemical reaction that created a material harder than stone, one that could set even underwater. Suddenly, they were not limited by gravity. They could vault the heavens. Look to the Pantheon, a dome of unreinforced concrete 142 feet wide, still standing 2,000 years later. It is a mathematical miracle. While the huts of their enemies have rotted into the earth, the Roman monuments remain. They built not for themselves, but for eternity. They wanted the future to look upon their works and despair. The Republic did not rise unchecked. In 218 BC, a nightmare crossed the Alps. Hannibal Barca. He brought the war to their doorstep. At Cannae, in 216 BC, he pulled off the perfect tactical encirclement. In a single afternoon, 70,000 Romans were butchered. The Senate lost 1/3 of its membership. The river Aufidus ran red for days. By all logic, Rome died that day. But Rome refused to die. This is the moment that defined them. Any other nation would have surrendered. Rome simply banned the word peace. They lowered the age of recruitment. They armed the slaves. They realized that to defeat a monster, they had to become one. They burned Carthage to the ground and salted the earth. The victim became the conqueror. Victory brought wealth, and wealth brought rot. The Republic began to eat itself. Generals became more powerful than the Senate. Enter Julius Caesar. January 49 BC. Caesar stands at the banks of the Rubicon. By crossing with his legion, he declares war on his own government. The Republic died not with a bang, but with a dice roll. Alea Iacta Est. The civil wars that followed washed away the old laws. When the dust settled, the Senate was a theatre. Augustus stood alone as the princeps, the first citizen, the emperor. Under Trajan, the map reached its zenith, from the mists of Scotland to the sands of Mesopotamia. 50 million people, 20% of the world's population, lived under Roman law. You could walk from the Atlantic to the Persian Gulf without ever leaving a paved road, without ever fearing a bandit, using the same coin to buy bread in Alexandria or London. This was the Pax Romana, the peak of human organization. But the higher you build, the further you have to fall. Empires do not die from murder. They die from suicide. By the 3rd century, the machine was broken. The economy collapsed. To pay the legions, emperors debased the currency, mixing copper into the silver denarius until it was worthless. Hyperinflation destroyed the middle class. Civil war became the new normal. In a span of 50 years, Rome saw 26 emperors. 25 were murdered. The discipline of the legion evaporated. They were no longer soldiers of Rome. They were mercenaries for the highest bidder. While Rome rotted, the world moved. On the steppes of Asia, the Huns began their ride, a domino effect of terror. The Huns pushed the Goths, and the Goths pushed against the Roman borders. But this time, the legions could not hold the line. At Adrianople in 378 AD, the Emperor Valens was not just defeated. He was trampled into the mud, his body never found. The myth of invincibility was shattered. August 24th, 410 AD, the date the world ended. Alaric and his Visigoths stood at the Salarian gate. They did not need to batter it down. It was opened from the inside. For the first time in 800 years, foreign boots marched on the sacred way. They did not just steal gold, they stole the soul of the West. Saint Jerome, weeping in his cell in Bethlehem, wrote, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken." The light went out, and the long night began. The legions are gone. The aqueducts are broken. The emperors are dust. But look around you. If you live in a republic, you are Roman. If you use a calendar, you are Roman. If you speak of senates, vetoes, or justices, you are speaking the language of a dead empire. Rome did not vanish, it sublimated. It dissolved into the groundwater of history and poisoned the roots of the Western world with its ambition. Every king since Charlemagne, every Tsar, every Kaiser has tried to wear its mask. They all chase the ghost of the Caesars. But the true legacy of Rome is not in its laws or its concrete. It is in its warning. We are them. They believed their walls were high enough. They believed their economy was too complex to fail. They believed they were the main characters of history. They were wrong. History has no main characters, it only has survivors. Rome teaches us that civilization is not a guarantee. It is a fragile pact, a candle flame in a hurricane, held together by discipline and shared belief. When that belief dies, the walls come down. The wolf ate the world, and in the end, the world ate the wolf. But in the silence of the ruins, if you listen closely, you can still hear the marching. The empire is dead. Long live the empire. To those who have marched with us from the mud of the Tiber to the ashes of the West, I salute you. Few possess the attention span to witness the full weight of history. You are the exception. If this resurrection resonated with you, if you prefer the hard truth over the comfortable myth, leave a like to honor the effort. Subscribe and take your place in the Legion before the next campaign begins.